He'll say I should just be happy, you know, after years of promoting and defending fake Aboriginal historian Bruce Pascoe and his crazy claims in his bestseller Dark Emu that Aborigines actually used to be farmers living in towns. Here is the ABC last night finally admitting that this was, well, kind of exactly false, as detailed now in a new book by two left-wing academics.
And as respected journalist and author Stuart Rinchell revealed in Good Weekend, it promises to make as much of a splash as Pascoe's celebrated work.
In page after page, Sutton and Walshe accuse Pascoe of a lack of true scholarship, ignoring Aboriginal voices, dragging respect for traditional Aboriginal culture back into the Eurocentric world of the colonial era, and trimming colonial observations to fit his argument. They write that while Dark Emu purports to be factual, it is littered with unsourced material, is poorly researched, distorts and exaggerates many points, selectively emphasises evidence to suit those opinions, and ignores large bodies of information that do not support the author's opinions.
None of it news to you. And last night, that ABC host, Media Watch host Paul Barry, implied that, yes, I should be delighted.
Yes, none have criticised Pascoe's work more than Andrew Bolt. And the new book, and Good Weekend's big launch, was All His Christmases Come at Once. On 2 days last week, Bolt told his Sky News audience that he was right all along.
That Bruce Pascoe can't be believed is not news to Bolt Report viewers. For nearly 2 years, I've pointed out his fakery.
He has indeed, and he blames the ABC chiefly for puffing up Pascoe. Bolt's ridicule of Pascoe has often involved disputing his claims to Aboriginal heritage, and some of his attacks have been personal. But the new book, written by eminent scientists and supported by the work of other academics, backs Bolt's verdict on Pascoe's work.
But let me tell you why I'm not that happy, because the ABC has not even started to reflect on its appalling failures here and what they truly mean. For a start, Paul Barry last night did not name a single ABC person, I've counted at least 26, who falsely promoted Pascoe and attacked conservative critics like me as racist simply for pointing out his many untruths, starting with his own so-called racial identity, Aboriginal my foot. For instance, Paul Barry did not admit that he himself had attacked me, mocked me and ignored my arguments in trying to defect my criticisms that the ABC had just shown a documentary in which Pascoe made the most absurd false claims about Captain Cook, stealing vegetables from the roofs of Aboriginal huts. To Barry, what counted here were not the facts, but that the ABC mob actually outnumbered me.
What really got Bolt's goat was an interview with Bruce Pascoe, whom Bolt has ridiculed for his claims to Aboriginal identity and his views on Indigenous history. Except there's one small problem. Because even if you share Bolt and Dean's views on Pascoe, which most do not, the ABC did not actually produce this programme. And Bruce Pascoe's book, Dark Emu, by the way, is a massive bestseller.
Joining me on News Watch is Jack Houghton, Sky News digital editor. Jack, was that a fair dinkum acknowledgement last night? The ABC spent years pushing a fraud, sorry about that, including in almost 20 videos for schools.
I mean, not only was it not an apology, but Paul Barry was attempting to spin it as if you should be really happy with this outcome, as if you should be happy with the fact that they've been slandering you on and off for years about this topic, and Paul Barry personally has been attacking you. The thing that I loved most about that non-apology and that just failure to be transparent at all was the fact that Paul Barry was saying, oh yeah, and people at the ABC were attacking Bolt. No, Paul Barry, you were. You were the one doing it, and he's trying to make it seem as if it was other journalists. I found the entire segment really bizarre.
Yeah, I know. Barry last night did give one explanation why the ABC promoted Pascoe and why not one ABC presenter doubted him, and that was, and he quoted one of the authors of this new book, that, well, they didn't want to give credit to Sky News and make conservatives feel happy, and that this was an uncomfortable lesson for journalists. Well, in fact, it's an uncomfortable lesson for the ABC itself. What lesson is that, and why hasn't Paul Barry learned it?
Look, it's such a good point, and being a conservative, I think in today's age, can be quite difficult, and there is a lot of pressure in a lot of different media outlets to conform to different views, and sometimes when those journalists pick something like Bruce Pascoe and they want to champion him, it can be really hard to objectively poke holes in that without being labelled a racist. And what they did to people that were asking quite legitimate questions about this book was abhorrent. And it really was. And we shouldn't shy away from actually saying that. The ABC really, really needs to look at its conduct quite closely here. And the lesser is to conservatives, it's back your gut judgment. If you think that something's a bit off, as a journalist, go for it. Don't shy away, because the people telling you that you're wrong, the people like Paul Barry, they are wrong far more often than they are right.
But Jack, you know, what gets me is what hasn't gone through Paul Barry's mind. You did have this ABC mindset, uniform, not one dissenter. An example of this that Barry did not give last night, ABC presenter Benjamin Law saying that if Andrew Bolt's publicly, whatever that word is, himself over it, Pascoe's book, Dark Emu, you know it's good, so give it to your non-Indigenous relatives this Christmas. I mean, when that's the ABC's attitude, that it must promote anything that conservatives attack, that tells me that the ABC is in fact irredeemably of the left. It's involved in picking sides, not standing up for truth, and Paul Barry should confront that, because it comes through again and again in the ABC's coverage of anything from global warming to, I don't know, George Pell. That's a very good example. That is the issue here.
Yeah, and I think it comes from an obsession with these little cliques and these little niches that form on places like, say, Twitter, which is this tiny little platform, but Paul Barry just sits on there all day and he's tweeting a lot during traditional work hours. I don't know if those are good use of taxpayer dollars, but they get obsessed with this, with getting inside of this mind with everyone else there. And it's a really tiny fragment of society. And it's kind of like this tribal culture. If Andrew Bolt says that this book has problems, well, then let's celebrate this book. It's this weird us versus them mentality. And it is pathetic. It's lacking in journalistic integrity. And Paul Barry had the opportunity to apologise and say that he jumped the gun because, to be honest, the book is flawed. And he backed the book.
It's trash.
Because he doesn't like you
Jack
as a
Houghton,
person.
you're always such a polite guy. You've been brought up so well. It's flawed. Put it in the bin. Jack Houghton, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.